Jon Reader, welcome back to the podcast, brother.
Hey, Ron, appreciate you having me back on, man. Let's go.
Man, I'm so excited. I see the sign on your wall, the relentless positivity, and man, that's what I think about when I think of you up in Wisconsin, man. It's just exciting to have you in the wrestling world and pumped to have you back on.
I appreciate it, man. Just try to bring that energy and that positive energy in every aspect, every space I'm in. Try to uplift those around me.
Is that something you were born with, or is that something you learned?
I revert everything back to my family, my parents, man. They raised me the right way, and who I am today is a direct reflection of the way I was raised by mom and dad.
Wow, that's exciting. Man, so let's I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about Wisconsin season and some of the studs you guys have. I want to talk about if you got any more crazy foot races coming up, but now let's just start at the top, man. One of my guys, an Illinois guy. When I say my guys, I'm just Illinois high school fanboy, Dean Hamidi. Man, talk to us about what he's been like in the program.
Well, I think he's emerged as the kind of face of this program. Guy that's done a great job of developing over the last couple of years. But what you get out of DJ is again, he's carried that to where he is right now. He's going into his junior season, and something special about DJ, even in the recruiting process, there was just desire to compete in this fire within every time he stepped on the mat, win or lose. And I can reference exactly where we saw DJ when we recruited him. It was actually at the Cheesehead tournament way back when he was just a little guy wrestling 106. And I remember watching him lose. It was just the competitive spirit that he had. I was drawn to that. And that's who we are as a program, just that burning desire to compete and that ferocious competitor within. I knew that this guy was going to have a trajectory of, sky's the limit. So as we came into this program, we quickly saw that that's who he was. That was his identity. And he came in with just this fearless competitor within him, didn't care who he was competing against, whether it was a veteran in our room or whether it was a freshman, didn't matter. He was ready to compete and he wanted to win in every aspect. And when you see that kid, that's hard to teach. That's hard to really coach that into someone. That's just within, man. That's right here. And DJ has had that, and he's been a great example for the rest of our room, bringing that kind of attitude, whether it's a run, a lift, a wrestle, it doesn't matter. He's full tilt in every aspect of his career. And you've watched him accomplish, special things. He's a true freshman being an All-American. Last year he was an All-American. This year he's continuing to dial things in and make adjustments to be able to compete with the top guys in the country. And his goal isn't to win a national title. His goal is to be a Hodge Trophy. And he says it regularly every single day. And that's the kind of attitude that he has. And when you talk like that, that requires a certain type of accountability. You say you want to be a Hodge Trophy winner. Well, it requires this, and it requires a lot in every aspect of your life, and consistency and relentless. And he's a direct reflection of everything that embodies. And I'm excited for his opportunity this coming season. And I know he's excited for the opportunity. He's not a guy that's going to shy away from a weight class, which we've seen over the last couple of years. 165 really develop into a premier weight class. And a lot of people want to watch that weight class, but again, very easy for guys to kind of filter away from that or shy away from that weight class. He's not that kind of guy. He's full head in, and this is his weight class, and he's ready to go.
Yeah, he has that just like the internal confidence. So when he goes out there, like he'll scrap with anyone. And I love that you saw that in a loss as a freshman. So it's like some of these parents that are listening now to the show, or even wrestlers listening, it's like even a match as a freshman, the way you handle a loss, that's something you guys are looking at that level.
Oh, absolutely. And Ryan, there's so much more that goes into the recruiting process. Obviously, the overlying things, the academics, but I'm really watching you in every aspect when you're competing. I'm watching the way you treat your teammates. I'm looking at how you treat your coaches, how you treat your teammates, how you treat your parents. I'm looking at how your body language is when you are competing. What is it? What happens after you take a loss? Are you that kind of guy that, all right, we're going to pack our stuff up and mom and dad are taking me home? Or are you going to put your head down and go get the next best thing? And that's who we are as a program. And we have that desire to find guys that are just like that.
I can only imagine the excitement you feel before you go do a visit with the recruit. It's like I related to, I'm in sales and we do meetings with customers on Zoom, but then sometimes we'll go to their office and it's a big meeting, right? And you definitely feel the butterflies and you get excited. What's it like going into a recruit's house for the first time?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole process because of the relationships, and I take that to heart, and so does our staff. And it's a priority for us to build genuine relationships. And really, Brian, the foundation of our program is the relationships we have with our athletes. And when you have a genuine, strong relationship with coach and athlete, there's no limit to where you can take that. And to
Yeah.
me, being able to step foot into a family's home and to let them understand that we as a staff, me as a coach, I'm going to meet your son right where he is in life. And I'm going to put my arm around him and I'm going to walk every step with him. And to be able to bring that kind of energy and bring that kind of passion into these families' homes, I love that, man. I could talk to anybody, and but it's genuine. It's just being who you are and bringing that energy and understanding that, like I said, we're going to meet your son right where they are, put their arm around him, and we're going to walk every step of the way. And what we talk about in our process of building relationships, and it may sound corny, but I really believe it. When it comes to relationships, if we do our job right, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, when your son is removed from this program, we should be the second phone call behind mom and dad when you have your firstborn son, when you get married. Hey, Coach Reader would love to hear that I just had my firstborn son. I mean that. I mean that wholeheartedly. And relationships are a strong priority in our relationship or in our program. And I love that process. So when we get in a recruit's house August 1st, man, it's just bring that energy and let them feel what they're going to be around.
Do you ever do like a couple on a day, or is it so that they're too spaced out distance wise?
You know what? Our target group has been very narrowed down, and I think when you get to those home visits, I think you kind of understand who your targets are, what
Yeah.
your priorities are as a team, and but again, we surround them with all the energy that we bring as a program and all the resources, and just reiterate and listen. This is where your son's going to be the absolute best version of himself.
There's a speech Urban Meyer gave like 2011. It's like at a coaching clinic the year after they won at Ohio State. And you say what you will about him, but
Yeah,
I love his results and just his philosophy. And he's big on building trust with a player, with an athlete. I'll send it to you because he goes over like 5 tenets. It's like this is if you have a relationship with a player. It's how you get there, because it's like a lot, again, taking back to my life, a lot of the things with my clients is if they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you about their problems and projects, and you're not going to make a sale. And if your athlete
that's the
doesn't
truth.
trust you, you're not going to get anywhere.
That's the truth. And like we said, the foundation of our program is relationships. But ultimately, what you want out of this is you want your student athlete to have the best experience they possibly can, and for them to walk away from this program the absolute best version of themselves. Where that is, we're going to leave the chips where they fall. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's incredibly important. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you got to have that trust, but it starts with consistency in that relationship. And again, I think that's critical in your program.
Yeah, consistency is one of the things he talks about, like repeated actions of doing the right thing.
Amen, man. Every single day. And that's what we talk about that in our program every day too, is consistency. You want to be the absolute best. You want to be the top guy at the top of the podium at the end of the year. It's a game of inches. And the guys that are willing to be consistent day in and day out, even when they don't want to do it, to make the choice over feeling. Those are the guys that are, the majority of the time on top of that podium.
It's like if we could just suppress that feeling. I love how you said making choice over feeling, because sometimes the feeling is you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're feeling lazy. You still got to be done. Customato
That's right.
told Mike Tyson, he's like, you don't exist. Only the task exists. You need to finish the task. And it's like, that's a little
Love it.
extreme, but yeah, I
I
like it.
love it. I love it, man. And 100%, we talk about it, do what you're trying to do, not what you feel. And that's from a technical aspect of the sport, but it goes with every aspect of your approach to the sport, whether it's nutrition, strength, running. You ultimately know, did you give 100%? Did you give everything you had in that, in whatever area that is? And I had one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. It really transformed who I am as a competitor, as a coach, as an athlete. And it was my senior year going into my senior year in college. And I'll never forget this. Is Kevin Jackson's uh, piece of little wisdom that really kind of sparked or turned the light on, and it just took my career to the next level. And I'll never forget it. We were sitting on top of the stadium. We just finished a team stadium. We're all exhausted. We come in as a group, and he brings us in and he goes, "Boys, you never know which workout's going to make you a national champ. You never know." And when I heard that, as simple as those words were, it completely every alarm went off in my mind, because I was not willing to go to sleep at night knowing I gave 99%,
Wow.
or I gave 97%, because someone at my weight class was giving more than I was, and I wasn't okay with that. And I think that ultimately, the guys that are on top of that podium at the end of the year, they fully embody that kind of mentality in every aspect, whether it's, I don't believe in, just being all in every aspect of your life to be the best version
You
of
never know
yourself.
when you're going to have a breakthrough, right?
Yeah, man, it could be a 45-minute drill, an individual drill, and that could have been the one that puts you over the edge. And I fully took that on, that mentality, and I believe that kind of powered me through my senior year.
And so you talk about Coach KJ he was your coach at Iowa State. When you first got there, your redshirt freshman year, or your freshman year, and even your redshirt freshman year, who was that coach that you had a really close relationship with?
Well, the recruiting process is different for me, and a lot, like I've said before on the show, Ryan. I had ultimately three different head coaches at Iowa State. So I got recruited by Coach Douglas, legendary coach at Iowa State, national championship coach. He was my head coach that I was getting recruited by, but Cael Sanderson was the assistant coach who really did a lot of the relationship building and kind of the process of coming to the house and doing that whole 9 yards. So when I committed, Bobby Douglas was the head coach. When I came into school, that transition happened right when I came into school. They announced that Cael was going to be the head coach, which was great, because ultimately, that was a major priority for me, was to have him as a partner, somebody in the corner. So when that happened, he became my head coach, and I had him there for 3 years. I had him there for my redshirt freshman year all the way through my sophomore season. At the end of my sophomore season, that's when Coach KJ came in with the staff of Chris Bono, and that's where ultimately him and I built our relationship, and it didn't stop. So, but again, I took that as a huge positive for me. I was around some of the best minds, the best athletes that this sport has ever seen, in some of the things, and even three head coaches. That means I had a multitude of assistant coaches. That one, I built relationships. Two, I got to be a sponge and just absorb their different techniques, like Tim Hartung, a name that doesn't, a lot of older school wrestlers understand who that guy is. He was a 2-time NCAA champion from Minnesota. He was like my guy at the time.
Really?
And that's,
he was. I didn't know that.
He was the man, one of the best coaches. He's not in coaching anymore. I think he's a high school coach at Stillwater High School in Minnesota. Phenomenal person. Can't speak highly enough about him. But I had a ton of other assistant coaches. Eric Volkrew was a 2-time NCAA champion at Iowa State. He was an assistant at a time. Yaru Washington, the Paulson brothers. I've had so many assistant coaches. That whole assistant coaching staff that's at Penn State, those were my coaches at Iowa State. So again, I took the approach of I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can from the people that are around me. And I was a relationship guy, so I got along with all of them. And it was just very fortunate, very grateful for my experience. A lot of student athletes, they don't go through 3 different changes in 5 years. I took that as, man, I got the privilege to be around some of the absolute best.
Yeah. Coach Douglas, what a legend. I mean, people forget about that 1988 Arizona State title, or 89, 88, whatever it was. But man,
I got a funny story about Coach Douglas. And so I was far down the road of his coaching career, right? I was far down the road. I think he told me I was his last recruiting class that he actually had to Iowa State, because he was obviously done after that. So I was part of his last recruiting class. And I have a funny story, man. When that transition happened, and we're doing summer camps for Cael one summer, and in Ames, and Cael had huge summer camps that we used to have, like 600, 700 kids that were there. And I'll never forget, I was just a young pup. I was a young pup and a student of the sport. I knew who Bobby was, and through the process of all of it. And I knew in the recruiting process, he was a big fisherman. So one summer practice we had going on for summer camps, Bobby shows up into the lead, Hickson lead, which is a big, area. We had like 20 mats down for camp.
Wow.
He comes in and he just has a fisherman lure vest on with no shirt underneath. And he has a pair of sweatpants on. Dude, it's like 100 degrees outside. And I took it as like he was fishing. He was out fishing that day. He was coming in for camp session, and he was like, just coming from out fishing. And I was like, Coach, you got to tell me where your sweet spot is. Where's the hole in Ames? Where you got to take a fish. He just looked at me, and he's like, haha, asshole, something like that, something like that, like he thought I was making fun of him about his that he was wearing, and I was like, what is you talk about one of the absolute, he was just a genius when it came to technical breakdown of the sport. I remember him, I made my first university world team, and he was helping me break down film. And, he was just a student, such a student in the sport himself. He had every
Yeah.
VHS possible of every tournament around the world. And I would tell him, hey, I'm getting ready for the University World Championship. He would come and he'd bring me like 27 VHSs and say, go watch this. And it's 1992 Eureka, it's whatever tournament over here, and he'd go watch these. I love that about him. I love that about him. And he was such a selfish guy, or selfless guy, in the way he built relationships with his athletes, and just an awesome guy, man. What a legend.
Why was he? So he shows up to practice, sweatpants, and no shirt, vest. So was he going fishing after that, or that was just his daily attire?
That was just his daily attire for the day, and I think he was a little taken back by my compliment of his vest, and I think he thought I was one of them, but I wasn't. I was truly like, hey, you need to take me fishing, coach.
Right. What's funny, I was talking to Jason Bryan about this, and it's like, I think it was just a phone call, but it's like in American wrestling, anything that happened before that 1972 Olympic team, a lot of people forget about because it was such a historic team, 1972. But man, Coach Douglas was a 2-time Olympian and was like 5-0 against Gable, and like that's his wrestling. Then his coaching career is at Arizona State, building it up, goes to Iowa State, and obviously puts together some tremendous teams. And that's just one of your many mentors, man. That's cool.
Oh man, I had so many, and even guys that their names are not even in the history books at Iowa State, like Nick Possolano, a name you probably don't hear quite about, but you would be an Illinois boy.
Providence Catholic, baby, come on.
Yes, sir. And that was a guy. I was a true freshman coming into Iowa State. He was a senior on his way out of the program, and a guy that stood around, or he kept staying around Iowa State for a little bit and was figuring out what he was going to do with his life. And he put his arm around me when I was a true freshman and said, this is the way you're going to train. You are going to be special. This is how you, everything, man. It was like, there was no moment where I could have had the opportunity to go down the wrong road. Cause if I did, he would have grabbed me by the back of the neck and said, no, this is the track you need to be on. I learned how to cut weight. I learned how to compete. I traveled every competition as a true freshman. And I'm just grateful for the people that really put their arm around me and kind of showed me the way as a young kid. I see a lot of red shirts come in, and it's almost like a year off kind of mentally. They're like, all right, I'm going to red shirt. It's okay. And that wasn't my approach as I came into Iowa State. It was like, listen, we're going to show you exactly how you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to compete in as many openings as you possibly can, because you're going to learn how to win at this level. Yeah. And I was just grateful to be around guys like that. But yeah, man, back to Coach Douglas. What a legend. And, just very grateful that he started the process of recruiting me to Iowa State, because it's changed my life.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I love how you talk about a redshirt coming in. It reminds me a lot about, I promise I'm not book dropping all podcasts, but I'm audio booking the Elon Musk book, and it's seriously unbelievable. His sense of urgency, I think a lot of people can take. Like, he doesn't want to wait for anything, and it's not always productive, but a lot of times it is. And it's like, even with you talking about as a redshirt, right? It's like the sense of urgency needs to be immediate, right? It needs to be now. It shouldn't be any waiting.
You actually put that perfectly, and in a great way of kind of putting that concept together. Because I do believe in that. I believe your 5 years go extremely fast, and I think that a lot of kids they think they come in and that year is like you put the training wheels on and then we'll take them off after a year's done. That's not the case. There has got to be a sense of urgency that, listen, you didn't make it just by showing up. You know what I mean? You're here because the goals that you have pushing forward. And again, it's a learning process, and there's a curve, and you got to be able to continue to, you're going to have adversity, but it's learning that attitude of, listen, I know there's going to be failures along the way, and there's going to be adversity along the way, but it's up to me about my attitude, how I'm going to keep pushing forward. And I think that if you keep that foot on the gas from your senior year in high school into your freshman year in college, you see the guys like this. Yeah. Guys are ready as redshirt freshmen. They didn't take that last year off, and they're competing for something. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man, I absolutely.
Now, tell me about, you look at your resume and you're like 3-time All-American, national champ, coach at one of the best schools in the country, and everyone would say, "Oh, it's easy for Jon Reader to be positive, man. He's had such a good life." Junior year, you don't All-American. I don't remember exactly what happened. I knew you had some injury, but that's got to be a moment where if you had a lull in your career, that had to be it. Talk to us about what you were feeling and how you got back going after that.
Well, I mean, I truly believe. I mean, it's easy to go back and say like this is the reason, but I really believe this is the reason why I became a national champ was that situation leading into my I didn't All-American my junior year. I was a freshman All-American. I was a sophomore All-American. I went into my junior year. I think I was ranked top 3 in the country going into the NCAA tournament. I get upset first round. And, to kind of preface that a little bit, there was injuries, there was concussions, and there was, knee injuries. I hurt my knee really bad in the Big 12 finals. And I remember I didn't hit the mat one time before the NCAA tournament in there, that week and a half, almost 2-week period in between your championship and then the NCAAs. I didn't hit the mat once. And, so mentally I'm the kind of guy, like I need to, every workout that's scheduled, I need to be on it. That's just who I am and who I was. And so that kind of played things, but going to the NCAA tournament, I was a little nicked up. And I believe a lot of that, I take ownership on all of that. I think a lot of it was self-inflicted just because of the way I approached my weight cut. And I think it really affected me. And all of a sudden it presented a lot of injuries. So I get into the NCAA tournament, I lose first round. And I'll never forget walking off that mat and hearing Sandy Stevens saying, first round upset, I believe his name was Chris Brown from Old Dominion, very tough, talented kid, beat me first round in the NCAA tournament. I think he was unseeded or a very low seed or something like that. And he upset me first round of the NCAA tournament. I remember just her voice, and she's such a sweetheart and I love her. But hearing her voice saying Chris Perry upset Jon Reader in the first round, I can hear it in the back of my head, man, still to this day. And walking back into the tunnel and being like, all right, man, here we go. I gotta figure it out. And I make it all the way back to the round of 12, and I'm kind of, just a shell of myself with the concussions and not being able to even hit my knee. It was more hand fighting, trying to pull guys down and run around them. I make it all the way back to the round of 12, and I wrestle. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I wrestled him in the All-Star duel that year, and I think I was 1 or 2 points away from tech fall on him in the All-Star duel. And I ended up wrestling him in the round of 12 and getting beat. And I just remember, Ryan, that moment of my career of how low I felt in kind of the negative thoughts of depression that really kicked in. And luckily, man, I had great people around me with Chris Mono and obviously KJ, and they believed in me. But at the moment, it's crushing. It was the lowest moment of my career. You've succeeded all through every level you've succeeded. And that year we were supposed to win the NCAA championship. It was us and I think Iowa, and it came down. Every session was neck and neck and neck and neck. And I was third seeded kid in the tournament. I'm supposed to, on paper, be finishing third or better. And so I go down first round. That's a big loss. And then all of a sudden I lose in the round of 12. That's even worse. So you get through that, and then I just remember luckily having parents that were just incredibly supportive of everything that I was about, man, and just really picked me up in the moment of my lowest part of my career. I'll never forget my mom and dad just saying, listen, we love you. And if I can tell anybody, man, it gets me a little emotional just thinking about it. Cause if you can do anything for your kids, man, in those moments, they want to make you proud. But if you can just tell them you love them in those moments, man, it went so far. It gives me goosebumps right now. But listen, it's going to be okay. It just reaffirmed that it's all right. Even though it mattered, it was the most important thing for me at that moment was winning. I wanted to win a national title so bad. And just for them to tell me they loved me and it was going to be okay. And, you're going to figure it out. You still got another year. Let's do this. So ultimately moving forward, I got revamped and luckily had a, now wife at the time was my girlfriend. And again, just that support system that was around me that really lifted me up and said, listen, number one priority is to get healthy. I was going through the season injured. Let's get you healthy and let's get you refocused. And I took a couple of weeks off of being in the room, ended up making a university world team that summer. And that kind of sparked things headed forward. I went up a weight class. I no longer was cutting weight. So that kind of eliminated injuries. I was happy. I was excited to come to practice. I was, a better teammate. I was a better, in my relationships with people that were around me. And I really enjoyed my senior year. It went by faster than all 3 years before that together. You know, it
Really?
was just it went. So my senior year went like this, and obviously it's easy that because I didn't lose my senior year, so it goes quick because you're winning, right? But I felt better than I had ever felt, and I think a lot of that was finding down the deepest part of where I was and figuring out who I was by building myself back up.
I
And
appreciate you sharing that, man.
I'm telling you, man, it was the darkest moments of my career, but I really believe that I figured out who I was as a man. I could have put my head down and just ran away, and I could have just absorbed it and let it eat at me and let it, just deteriorate me. But at the lowest moments, I'm lucky I had people around me to build me up. But that was where I figured out who I was, and it ultimately sparked and springboarded me into my senior year. And that's what I tell my athletes: to listen, I've seen the lowest of lows in this sport, or at least, in moments of loss of when you think you're going to accomplish something. And then I've been at the other side of it. And so I've experienced everything in between. And that's a special thing to be able to experience those, and reflect those experiences with your athletes.
And to like push through it, right? It's like anyone who's achieved anything has had those moments of like self-doubt or just that real that down feeling. And it makes you
Yeah.
just want to like give it up and be like, yeah, you know what? This isn't that important. Screw this, man. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm gonna bow out. But it's crazy how much growth can happen if you're in that spot and just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, even to fast forward the years down the road, those were some of the drawing moments in that 100-mile race. Even not to talk too much about that 100-mile
No, I
race.
want to talk about it. Good.
But in the darkest moments of that run, you're reflecting on moments like this. Listen, I've seen the lowest of lows. I've been to the lowest of lows. You can do this. It's okay. If you think you can, you can. But if you think you can't, you're not going to do it. And I really believe is as simple as that saying is, and we've heard it a million times, right? If you think you can, you can't. If you don't think you can, you're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And just reflect on those moments. Like, man, I've seen it, I've done it, I've felt it, and I think that's kind of fortified me into who I am. It's kind of formed me in with that attitude of what I am now today.
I love it, man. It's so infectious. I can't even imagine how your guys must feel to be around you. And I look at you guys got to Wisconsin, what, 2018?
Yes, sir. Yep,
Man,
2018.
it goes fast. And when
Fast.
dude, so you guys were at South Dakota State building that program up really from nothing to a really respectable program. What like similarities and parallels was it for you guys to build up Wisconsin as it was to like build South Dakota State?
I just think that the bones were here at Wisconsin, so they've had historically great programs in the past. It just needed to be structured and kind of build the culture that we see fit for this program. And no, by no means has it been an overnight project. It's been a lot of consistent, effort to get it to where we are now, and we're far from being done. But at South Dakota State, it was just, again, putting in that attitude that, listen, you guys are the underdogs. You got on paper, nobody believes you can win here. And, let's go prove these guys wrong. Let's go prove them wrong. And again, a place like South Dakota State, they just had unbelievable support. Their athletic department supported them. The town supported them. That's a special, special place. And it'll always hold a special place in our heart because of the relationships we built there, and the teams that we formed in that place, and the Frost Arena, how it was rocking, every dual meet. It was just an incredible part of our coaching career. But we brought that same kind of blue collar attitude into this program, and we again are still recruiting the similar guys, and it's just a bigger platform, and very grateful to be here.
Well, Madison is easily one of the best college towns. If not, you'll say the best. It's one of the best, man.
It is the college. It is the number one college in America, man. I believe that, and I've seen bias, man. It's incredible. I remember the first day we stepped on campus here, and I looked at Bono, and I'm like, dude, we were recruiting against this. And then going through all the meetings and all the resources with the different departments on what these student athletes get to become the best version of themselves. How can you not win? How can you not win? And how can you not be motivated to attack it every single day? And just grateful to be in this position where we are at Wisconsin. And again, I've been with Coach Bono for over 10 years now, man. And it's a special relationship. And to be able to do it with Seth Gross and to be able to do it with our newly appointed assistant coach, Garrett Model, and just a guy, again, who's in a position now as an assistant coach because of the attitude he brings every day. One, as a competitor when he was in this program, but now as an assistant coach. And we're just very grateful to be representing this program.
Well, it's a program where, Wisconsin athletics, we in college sports, we always think about the football. They're always right there, right? And you bring in Luke Fickell, heavyweight legend.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about Coach Fick, man. He's the best. The second he stepped onto campus, there was an energy like no other. And being a wrestling guy, you have a little extra, like, let me put my arm around this guy, and again, very down to earth, approachable, personal guy that I've ever met in the coaching profession. And just, you're sitting in the sauna once, twice a week with him and his staff, and they're very personal. They know wrestling. They know guys that are wrestling out there. They know the sport just as good as we do. Like, hey, are you recruiting this guy? Or hey, we're recruiting this wrestler. What do you think of him? So there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of overlap, and I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about his time here at Wisconsin and the impact he's going to make on this athletic department, which he already has. But the special thing about him, he brought more wrestlers on his staff too. Like, there's multiple wrestlers across the board.
Really?
Mike Tressel, his defensive coordinator, his head defensive coordinator, was a wrestler. Colin Hitchler, his co-defensive coordinator, he was a starter at Penn at 184 back when Zeke Jones was the head coach there.
What?
Talking about, you're talking about these guys know wrestling, they know recruiting, they know what they're talking about.
Wow, it's cool because
so it's really cool.
Because he was on the podcast when he was at Cincinnati. I was just amazed. I love when people go to something that's nothing and turn it into a program, like he did at Cincy, right? And he was telling me, he wrestled at Ohio State his first year, so he plays football for Ohio State. They go to the Rose Bowl. He comes back to wrestle. His first match back is Kerry McCoy, Penn State, Ohio State.
I know, and that's what he said. He said he thought he was ready to go, and he was, I think the way he told the story was it was maybe even through the first period, and I think he chose down and ended up, getting one way real quick, the other, towards Kerry McCoy's favor, but just his.
But that's a legend though. Like, McCoy's like one of the best heavyweights of that era.
It goes on to be a multiple-time NCAA champion, multiple-time Olympian, world champion. Kerry McCoy was the real deal.
Yeah.
And but Coach Fickell, his foundation is wrestling. He would tell you every opportunity that he's had in this sport and where he's at in life right now is probably from wrestling.
Oh yeah.
And he's, and there's, again, just it's unique to have that kind of energy with a football coach and that kind of personal approach to the way he builds relationships around this department and his willingness to help our sport in return. And just very excited for him, and he's doing a heck of a job, and everybody around here is so fired up by him.
Yeah, he's amazing. And what I love about him is he's a family man too. He's got tons of kids and he brings them everywhere, man. So it's like, guess why I bring that up is you look at guys who are successful, who some of them have done it with a family intact, because let's be real, there's a lot of time sacrifice, right? And then some haven't. And so it's like, what allows some people to be successful but still have families, while some people are successful and they've had, multiple divorces, right? And it's just like, I see you got a kid, you got 2 kids and a wife, and it's like, what's that been like, kind of being a father while you learn to be a coach?
It's the greatest thing in the world, man. And I tell, like, Coach Gross is a new father, and I told him, man, there is nothing better than being a dad, and there's absolutely nothing better. And I love that when I step foot into my house at night after a long day, and anything that bad happened during the day, nothing compares to how excited I am when I walk through the door and I see my family, because ultimately that's what it's all about, and I'm just very grateful to have a wife that understands the required effort that it takes to be at this level, and the consistent of me not always being at everything, and just being there, just being that rock when I'm not able to be there. But man, having these guys, bringing in the kind of guys that we do into this program, I'm fully confident when I bring my daughter and when I bring my son into this room, that those are guys that they can look up to. And those are role models that they can have as young kids, to be able to look and say, hey, listen, that's how you treat people. Or, hey, that's how you treat your teammates. Or, hey, this is how you give your best effort. Or, hey, this is how you go about X, Y, and Z. So to have my little guy just starting wrestling, and to come up here and look at these guys and have, my guys putting them up on the pull-up bar and, I get home and that's all he can talk about is how DJ he put him up on the pull-up bar. And to me, man, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And
I
again,
saw his hip heist video.
how about that?
Dude.
How about I know. How about that? He's a little beast. He's a little beast. He thinks he's invincible right now. He thinks he's the true life. He's the real life little but
So
he's got a lot of energy, he's got a lot of passion, and we're excited. He's keeping us busy.
now are you doing the kids club coaching too, or just you I wouldn't imagine you have time for that, do you? Or do you try to get in there?
Kids club here, we got some great programs around our area with Ben Askren, with his Askren Wrestling Academies throughout the entire state. And we've got many clubs around here. Nazar's got a great club. Ryan Taylor's got a club right down the road. Sarbacher. We've got a lot of great programs in our area for kids to have that opportunity to continue to grow. And so yeah, we're getting close to getting my little guy going. He's 5 and he's itching, man.
I tell you what, man, the club scene is powerful, and it can really transform a state. I mean, I say it all the time, overtime, what it did to Illinois. You look at all the Fargo national titles and AWA in Wisconsin. And I noticed just on Twitter, you guys were down at one of my favorite clubs, Izzy Style. I mean, talk about your relationship with Izzy Style. I mean, I'm sure you're close with all the clubs, but what do you see in that program that you like?
Yeah, we make a consistent effort to get out to every single club across the state, not just the more common names that you hear, the Izzy Styles, the AWAs. We want to build relationships with every single club and to let them know that there's an opportunity for their athletes to wrestle at the next level, and an opportunity to, if you're a Wisconsin club, what a great honor we're the only Division I program in the state. So having that opportunity to stay home and be homegrown and to be able to represent your state is a special thing. But when you got Izzy right down the road, he's 2 hours down the road, and just a program that Izzy runs, man. I'm incredibly impressed every time I walk into that room. One, just because he's a great coach and he's a great person, but one thing that I'm over like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like every time I walk into his room, every single one of his guys come up to me and shake my hand. Every single one of them looks you in the eye. Every single one of them is incredibly respectful, and they're in there and they're getting after it.
Yeah.
So you know what you're getting out of those guys, and just very, very impressed every time I walk out of that room, and it gets me fired up. And Izzy's just a great coach and has been a great coach for a long time. And he's a proven coach. So excited every time to get down there and to see Izzy. And like I said, he's a big supporter of ours as well.
Yeah, and those guys wrestle with a lot of confidence, and he's one of those coaches, kind of like a Deion Sanders. Like he instills confidence in people. Not all coaches do that, but Izzy does that. Like Izzy's guys walk around with a lot of confidence at tournaments. Like we go to tournaments as a kid.
I think when you watch those practices too, he forges those guys in the fire in the room. They're going to be ready when they get out into competition because of the style of his training and in the positions and situations that he puts his athletes in, whether they're just different stressful situations, that he's going to make sure that you're forged and you're ready to compete. If you're going to represent the Izzy style, you're going to compete at the highest level, and you're going to have maximum effort, and that's what he demands out of his athletes. And that's why I love going down there and being around his guys and just feeding off him.
And kind of like transitioning into, I have a few non-wrestling things I want to ask you about, but wrestling wise, kind of going back to, I always empathize with these parents because my mom had never been in wrestling before we got involved. Right. And you look at some kids, their dads are college coaches or whatever. There's different experiences with it. So if we got a kid wrestling, an 8th grader or a 9th grader, tough, you couple time placer, and he wants to make that next level. Like, what do you think are the most important things that person can be doing? Like, not even like tactically, but maybe some of the more important values you guys are looking at when you're recruiting kids.
Be consistent. I don't even have to waver on that one. I think it's being consistent. And I really believe it starts early. And the quicker you can understand being consistent and how that's going to directly correlate to your success, you can't just expect you say you want to be a national champ, and that's right here. You can't be willing to give this on a consistent basis. There's a big gap. And I think when you can understand that from early age, and I think that there's a lot of incredible club coaches out there that are really preaching that and that get that across to their athletes, and Izzy being one of those. He demands a certain level of consistency and buy-in. And when you say you want to be a national champ, it requires this. And I'm going to show you the roadmap, but are you willing to walk that walk? And I think that if I were to give any advice to the parents of kids that want to jump that level, is just again, one, obviously be able to support your son or daughter in the opportunities that are going to help them get to the next level, but be consistent. Absolutely be consistent. It can't be one every month. It's got to be buy-in. You really want to get to the next level, you got to be willing to work, and you got to be willing to put your head down with the understanding that the results are going to be a lagging indicator of months and weeks of work that you've done, right? And I think that's huge. It's not an overnight process.
I like how it's a lagging indicator. That's a good point.
I'm telling you, everything is a lagging indicator of choices that you've made. Everything. Yeah. we get to March, Ryan, and you remember this comment right now. When we get to March and those awards that are going down for the top 8 at the NCAA tournament, those are all a lagging indicator of the choices that each one of those 8 guys made throughout the entire season, made throughout the whole previous summer, right? To get them to that position right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe it wholeheartedly. You can't just turn it on and turn it off. I don't, or at least I've never been able to, and I've yet to find someone that's extremely skilled on turning it off and turning it on. And
well, even the folks who don't do that, but like they're plugging every day. It's easy to not I guess it's like I picked up golf this summer, went every day 3 months, didn't see shit, and then finally things are starting to go my way. But it's like we say it right, but like once we're back in the saddle,
on the golf game, don't even get me started on the golf game. Listen, I took the golf game up, and I'm glad because I've never had a real true hobby in my life. And if you know me, I'm either 0 or I'm all in, like overboard. And so I went out and bought the nice set of clubs. I bought a nice bag. I started playing more. And you know what, man? I haven't gotten any better. Man. So, but again, you can't expect. Here's a great example. You want to be better, you got to be consistently out there on the course. You got to be consistently trying to get out of the sand trap. You got to be consistently learning how to chip. You got to consistently learn how to putt. You can't just show up once a month and expect to break 90 or whatever it may be. It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I keep telling myself when I'm done, I'm all frustrated. I'm like, dude, why do I suck? And why am I terrible at golf? And I'm like, dude, listen, you play once a month. What do you expect?
Right.
But I think that's the way a lot of the athletes think, that just because you show up once means you're going to accomplish X, Y, and Z. It's not like that.
No, it's equally frustrating though, because that sport, the harder you grip and try, the worse you do.
Oh, hey, listen, I've learned that the wrong way, man. Listen, the harder you squeeze, and the harder the faster you swing that club, it doesn't always say it's going to go straighter. That's for sure.
So true. Well, Coach,
I think Bono is he said it many times when I've swung the club. Hey, just swing harder.
Dude. I can see you just breaking that thing almost, dude.
Yeah, I can hit it long and far, but I don't know which way it's going. That's the problem.
Well, man, good news for us is it's getting cold, and it means golf season's done and wrestling season started. We're 2 weeks out from your guys' first duel, which I'm so excited about that. Man, let's talk a little bit about, though, when you look at going forward, you got some new guys in. You got some California guys and Luke Condon on the lineup. You guys are tapped into that Poway pipeline.
Yeah, so Luke is one of the most special freshmen, and I know saying that is saying a lot because of a guy like DJ who came in as a true freshman. But Luke is in a position where he's got really great partners in the room. Whether it's DJ, whether it's Max Mailer, who's a transfer from Michigan, whether it's Shane Ligo, who's a Division II national champion at 184, and a room full of other guys that are really challenging this guy. But the development we've seen from Luke in the last 3 months has been incredible, absolutely incredible. And I'm telling you, mark it down. Remember this conversation when you think about Luke Condon. I'm telling you, he's going to be a very, very special college wrestler. But again, it's because of his willingness to buy in and to lean into when things get uncomfortable. He's continuing to show up. He's continuing to show back up, even though he's wrestling a guy like DJ Hamidi or X, Y, and Z. And I'm telling you, man, this guy's a workhorse. He's got a great attitude. He loves being a great teammate, and I'm just very grateful to be in his corner. But that's just one of seven other freshmen that we brought into this program. We brought 4 transfers and 7 freshmen, so a pretty darn big class. And what if I had to kind of summarize our team for this year? It's an underdog team. It's definitely an underdog team, and I love that. It's kind of reminds me of the teams we've had at South Dakota State, where on paper, man, some of the guys haven't accomplished things that they want to accomplish in this sport, and some of them it's their last chance. And we've got a good mix of young guys that are ready to make their mark. And we've got a few guys in the team that have been accomplished and been All-Americans, but are still trying to get to the top of the podium. Mm-hmm. So a very hungry team, a very selfless team, and I love that. These guys are a bunch of dogs, and they're ready to compete. They've been competing against each other for a long time, and throughout the spring and summer, and now into preseason, they're ready to compete. We open up our season November 5th at home against Lindenwood, and I know those guys are ready and itching to go.
Let's go, man. I learned a couple things today, Coach. Probably most important, if I'm going to be a Himity fanboy, which I am, I didn't realize it's DJ. So he goes by that by short. I'm going to start dropping that more often.
Yeah, man. He goes by DJ. We call him DJ around here. And
love it.
Again,
he's amazing.
He's amazing, man. And it's not just what he does on the mat. He's a good person off the mat, and someone that is a great representative of who we are in this program and who this university is.
All right. Couple rapid fire questions. I'm going to let you go, Coach. What were you more nervous for, the 100-mile race or the base jumping you just did?
Base jump by far. I was cocky going into the run. I was really cocky, and I got humbled very fast. But the base jump, that's like it's either going to go right or it's going to go really wrong. and they pretty much told me, that's a long story, but man, very, very nervous for that. I was excited for the opportunity, but nervous. Like, there's not a lot of room for error when you jump off that. They were telling me it's actually more safe to jump out of a plane than it is off a bridge.
Oh,
because
definitely.
the margin of error is so small.
You're so much closer to the ground. Yeah.
So much closer. And if something goes wrong, it's over.
Wow. So were you like John DeJulius hooking you up on that, or how did that all start?
So John, actually, it's a great story. So I was out in Jerome, Idaho, is where I did that, off the Perrine Bridge, eighth tallest bridge in the world. And Johnny DeJulius hooked me up. So that when they found out that I wanted to do it, they're like, all right, well, we need to find out somebody that's an expert in this thing. So they reached out to Johnny. Johnny reached out to a guy, and Johnny hooked me up with a guy that was very, very, skilled at what he did. And I'm grateful for Johnny for doing that. And not just to somebody they pulled off the street, but this guy had, thousands of base jumps off that exact bridge. And he did a great job and made my experience really, really fun.
Dude, how nervous before that jump?
Listen, I didn't tell my wife I was doing it until after. And she's like, you're absolute crazy. Dude, I was so nervous when I got up there, and I got psyched out just because the way that this dude was talking to me. He's like, let me do the spit test. The spit test was, he's just going to lean over the edge of the bridge and just spit all the way down, and then just kind of watch it to see where the wind was, kind of dictate how our landing was going to be. And it was an experience, man, but it was fun.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Because the amount of people that to this day, I'll get someone. It's actually Aaron Onspach, who's a national runner-up for Penn State. He reached out to me and he's like, "Yo, I'm trying to get my friends to do an event," and I actually sent him the interview we did with you and Bono after the 100-miler, man, because that's still, people still cannot believe that you didn't do like a half marathon, a marathon. That was like your first event, was a 100-mile foot race.
Dude, a lot of people always come up to us and they reference your podcast about that, and they're like, listen, I got into it, I heard that podcast, I wanted to try the 100. I'm dead serious. We didn't do any other race. That was our first race ever, was 100 miles. We never did a marathon. We never did a 10K. We never did a 5K. None of that. It was 100 miles.
Dude, it's amazing.
And insane.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Coach. I always get excited talking to you, and man, I just feel the energy and positivity, and I can't wait to watch your guys' season. Tell Coach Bono I say what's up, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Let's get Coach Gross on here, man.
Yes, let's go, man. Let's go. We'll get it all set up, and we'll get him on here. He'll crush it too.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.